Hi, welcome to another PlayBASIC blog. I think it's the fifth blog maybe, and today is the 6th of November 2017. Maybe I'll look at the forums. Just want to have a quick look at, put some scrolling code up the other day, and check out what sort of new things have been dropped into over here. We've got some code that does gives a list of unique email addresses if you need something like that. Got some array wrapping and filtering speed up ideas, some revision of the alpha particles example. It's a nice old demo, that one. I've got a flood field pathfinder in the bottom, lexical scanner, some palette mapping stuff. There's a bit of code dropped on here. We've got this, I think it's Donkey Kong Country 2, it's meant to be. Not quite sure what this is. I think it's some sort of remake. It doesn't work here, so I don't really know what it is. In fact, none of those demos have ever worked. But in terms of tutorials, we've got a bit of stuff happening down here in the beginner sections, where I've pretty much been dumping them. These are video tutorials, by the way. Got the PlayBASIC Live, creating a XML phraser series. It starts out pretty basic and is building up into a nice version of a library. Haven't done much testing with it, but that's not something else. Hoping the stuff captures alright, because sometimes when we have videos on the pages, they don't capture very well. It's currently 5 episodes. The examples are attached at the bottom down here, so you can get the code, and it does work. So if you need to use it, go for it. Got some bunch of retro videos which I think I looked at before. Tutorial on moving from using variables to arrays. I think that's new as well. Trying to keep them relatively short, but it's hard, man. It's hard to keep them sort of short without scripting it, like this one here. So there's a bit of stuff on the forums for you to mess around with and have a look at as of late. Just trying to look at what's on the news page. Oh, there's some more tech demo stuff that we released recently about the old Amiga days. It's been over 20 years. Geez, actually it's more than that, isn't it? 22, 23 years since DCS 12, and come on, download. I hope this does capture, because it's very frustrating when it doesn't capture. Looks like it's not going to... Oh, there we go. That's the old Mental Combat. It's a filled polygon engine for the Amiga, 16 color, and uses dual playfield. We have 2 playfields of 16 color. Actually, it might be 8 color. I'm not quite sure now. No, I think it is 16. Just that the foreground palette is the same as the background palette there. T12. That's a capture from WinUAE in recent years. The one we put up the other day was that's a version of reality from WinUAE. Trying to get it to recompile, but this doesn't want to work. A few effects there from Amos Effects as well. A compression system I wrote for a demo. That not one of my demos, just third party. Gameplay video of Thesis 12 captured from WinUAE as well. The ones down the bottom here are actually promo videos that were part of a VHS package we went around to investors and trying to drum up some interest in the underwear design way back in the day. Very hard back in mid-90s to get anyone to take you seriously. This is the reality video. Has a collection, a section of the characters kind of walking around. It is on an Amiga 1200, remember. So we're talking about very low frame rates. We're trying to go for 1x1 pixel texture mapping, but pretty ambitious. Of course, never quite reached that sort of level, but for the day it was a bit of fun. So it's kind of funny looking at back on it now. It's actually the first time I've really seen it in probably 20 years. Very few people have ever seen the demo outside of the group and outside of a few people, other coders in the Amiga scene back in the day. But not here to talk about old stuff. We're here talking about, I guess, what's been happening with PlayBASIC. So last time we talked, last time we had a bit of a blog. We're in the middle of doing 165C, or we've moved on to that process, and we've got a new calling convention for commands. That's actually in place now, and I was going to release that into the public the way it was, but I just want to keep the momentum going with those kind of. I don't have much time to spend behind the keyboard these days doing that work, and it takes sometimes you're coding, sometimes you're just trying to plot out where you're going, trying not to make any mistakes, and it's very hard not to make mistakes. So we've got a new call convention at 165. I think I put up a benchmark video in the blog there as well with the fast dot command showing off the performance increasement just by changing that call convention. And I can't think of the frame rates off the top of my head, but on my test system that I've always been running on, which is a very old system, that demo now clocks in at over 60 frames per second. I think the most recent one was over 70 frames per second, so it's not a bad effort for effectively an interpreted language. I think back in the day you would have been lucky to get 10 frames per second out of it, because it's rendering 800 by 600 32-bit dots, and that's effectively that's 800 by 600 function calls. It's a lot of work for the runtime to do, but we've evened a lot of that out. So we have this new function calling mechanism in there. It needs a bit more work, but it is actually up and running and working. What I was going to do then is I was going to make a release of that, or whatever the beta was at the time, but we're so close to getting rid of the two hybrid VMs. What we have at the moment is we've kind of got old VM over here, and it's running the whole show. It's running everything. So what happens is when it runs something, these days it calls new VM, and that executes instructions until it finds something it doesn't understand and then returns. And here it falls down. Just trying to do some pipe characters. Yeah, then it falls down into the old instruction decoder. So it's kind of a loop, really. We'll make that like a for loop, actually. Or do loop, really. It's just a do loop. So it does this kind of loop here until there's a status flag, really. Status equals false. And status, the program might want to stop executing when an error is trapped or the person's decided to end, or a whole bunch of reasons actually. So the old version has this two-tiered mechanism in it, and that's all fine, and it does work. We can replace our old instruction sets with new instruction sets just by this mechanism, this way of layering out the code. But at the moment, every instruction set is running on this VM, on the new VM. So what we really have now is almost nothing on this side in old VM doing any work. So it's time to get rid of that loop and just have, you know, basically the new, you know, the execution engine will just, you know, it'll just call new VM, and when it returns, the program's done. Yeah, there's no need to keep coming back and going back. As I mentioned before, there's a few problems with that. Some of the legacy commands, like the debugger controls, there's a bit of stuff hidden away in some commands to handle background things that you just don't think of. Like in sync, for example, you've got the message handlers running in the background. They need to keep happening, and this old structure here it lets us keep doing that because instructions are executed for a certain number of cycles, a certain number of instructions, and then it stops and checks messages. Because you have to. If you don't, Windows will basically kill your application. Lovely operating system, isn't it? This will be happening in the new runtime as well, just that we won't need these two butchered sections together. The problem, I guess, as it stands now, is we have these two. The legacy application has its own structures, its own way of handling things. The new one has its own way of doing things as well. We have this new application structure, which is entirely different to the old one. So you know what I'm saying there, just that in the new app format, the whole program is one consistent chunk of data. It's all one block. That's very beneficial for execution performance because we want the process to cache chunks of our data that sit next to each other, and that's beautiful. It works really well for that. So some of the performance benefits we get now are actually just because of the new application structure. The detriment is that this old stuff over here doesn't understand that. It has no idea about those formats, and this kind of this conversion crap that goes on. It's very frustrating. You know, a lot of that stuff's in place, but I just want to get rid of all that crap. Just want to have it run on the new VM and be done with it. That's why I'm sort of delaying out putting up new versions of 165C. Today's build of that, it works to a point. And this version here works to a point. If you try and run debugger codes, it doesn't work, and a couple of simple ones too don't work. I think end doesn't work, for example. So if you call end, just nothing happens. The thing hangs, which is not good. One other small problem is going to be is the way errors are reported. The old VM just has a couple of globals. Really, there's a bit of a structure, and no, it's actually different for different libraries, which is weird too. So the commands themselves, when something happens that should report an error, it calls this thing or sets this error state, and then the runtime, this whole runtime here is in here somewhere. There's a, you know, if error state there's anything other than 0, then we, abort. Status equals false. To get this loop to stop. Hope things are gonna follow up what I'm saying there. Is that, like in some command, like if you said draw sprite or something like that, and you called sprite index or variable, I just had some variable there. Of course, if I ran this code at the moment, there's no sprites created, so that should return a runtime error. Draw sprite is part of the command set. It's not part of the runtime. So how does the runtime stop when some error state is flagged? In the error state tripping stuff is all geared towards this old runtime, not the new one. This is what I'm saying, trying to get to. So it's a bit of messing around going to be involved in that, and it's crappy stuff. I really hate doing it. It drives me nuts. You keep finding little bits and pieces here that break certain old conventions, and because libraries are written in different times, and as I was saying before, there's different mechanisms to trip errors in some libraries. Yeah, believe it or not. That's what happens when you write projects that are over 10 years long. Sucks, isn't it? It drives me nuts, all that stuff. So it'd be good to clear all that crap out, and I am actually going to go back through and rewrite a lot of those old libraries, because I kind of have to anyway. Really, it's time to get rid of a lot of the kludginess in some of those places and just start afresh. I've actually got some rewrites of some of that stuff from PBFX beforehand, so I'll probably just use those code bases in there anyway. And that too will help with the performance, and the command sets themselves will get some extra performance, and then the application gets more and more performance. It's not that I'm massively concerned about the performance. I actually find I can write whatever I want in PB, and I'm running on Windows 10. I don't have any problems at all. Other people have reported having problems, but I do notice there are certain things that you shouldn't do, and text is one of them actually that comes to mind. Just go back there for a second. I think on this computer it kind of chokes if you do go back to source codes. Scrolling message. Someone was asking on one of the YouTube videos about scrolling messages, so knock this thing here together. Like literally knocked it together. So this is a Windows 10 system, and it's the crappiest system you've ever seen in your life. See how it runs. Hopefully this captures. God, I hate it. I don't know why it started pushing this to the background. Yeah, the capturing's making it a bit jerky, but it does actually seem to be working. But I have noticed that text on these systems can be quite bad, and trying to draw lots of small sprites, lots of small that are video image sprites, that seems to be a bad one as well, which affects things like copying those copy strip and those kind of copy rect kind of commands as well. But nonetheless, let's get back to where we are with our conversion. So at the moment, I'm sort of in the middle of trying to get this new get rid of the old VM, get it to work, and get it to work pretty consistently before I actually put it up on the server. There's probably going to be there will be warts with it, so we can work out those things over the next few releases, and then bam, 165C will be an entire new runtime. New runtime, new optimizations, got a whole list of things I want to put into it as well. Some really sort of I'm talking about compiler optimizations here, by the way. You know, lots of things I've noticed in applications that you could just, you know, if you had a better way of implementing those, you would make your program perform better. Or they would make programs perform better, and it doesn't take a lot of back end speciality to do that. Like one I noticed the other day, this is kind of an obvious one. You might have, what was it? I think it was shifting in a mask. So you might have like result, you know, value shift by some amount, and then you might have an end after it like that. So you got one operation here, and then the result of this is then another operation, and it should be shortcut to be 2. So it should be 2 operations at the shortest, but it might be 3 operations in certain circumstances. But the VM could actually have a shift and mask operation in it, which would mean that that's one operation every day, and that means a lot in programs that do data sort of swapping. Like if you're reading a binary file, you've got to do something with it, or you maybe do some encryption or something like that. And those things there tend to need a bit of extra performance. You know, it's just one idea off the top of my head, and that would be just one opcode dropped into this one sort of combined opcode into there. Of course, you can do things like having stacked operators, so you can have like A, you know, plus B plus funky keyboard. Something that when the compiler notices these kind of simple stacked operations, it can shortcut them as well. I've actually got a whole bunch of these ideas and a bunch of stats too by looking at all the code, what was bottlenecks in those programs, which you kind of have to do really. I wouldn't mind, you know, I know it sounds a bit like a big brother at sometimes, so I wouldn't mind actually building in some of that stuff that then having, you know, PB might ask you, you know, can I upload this to our public server or something like that, like the stats from people's compiles. If you didn't know, the PB keeps a very basic stats file every time you build something. We could sort of add certain statistics about how frequently certain operators appear. So if it's worth adding those things, then could give a bit of a weight to if that operation appears inside a loop, then that's even more beneficial. If it only appears outside of a loop, then it's probably not that beneficial. Right. Anyway, so that'll have to do. We are getting towards a real version of 165C. Our calling convention is kicking ass, and it will get better even still. And once we can finally kiss goodbye with the second generation of the runtime and move on to generation 3 completely, that will be a day I'll be celebrating off the rooftops. Now I know this stuff is boring to people. I know people don't understand what the hell I'm talking about or why it's a big deal. But it means when your application runs faster, you can achieve more things with your applications. And I'm testing on the slowest computers you've ever seen in your life. If I can get stuff to run in real time here, there's no excuse for you as well. And we want to make sure that when we put this stuff out in the wild, when you release your game or release your tool, whatever you're making, that those things run pretty well for people as well. I can't guarantee they'll run perfectly for everyone. It's impossible. Because the PC market is not really one platform. It's really an infinite number of variations that you kind of have to just kind of at some point go, well, you know, I'm sorry, it's not going to work perfectly for everyone. And you know, I can't think of a language that does. I wish we could say that, but it's just not reality. So that's what we're up to, and thanks for for checking out the blogs. Thanks for downloading PB or dropping into the forum every now and then. If you do, I mean, please jump on the forum every now and then and just post a bit of code. Jump on the Facebook page or the YouTube channel and give the videos a bit of a watch and share them or whatever. Just help us get those messages out there. If you got ideas for what you want to see in videos, I kind of imagine what people want to see, but maybe chuck some ideas into the beginners area in here. We'll sort of work out the ones that the most popular. I'm guessing people want like a let's make a game sort of thing. But what kind of game? Pong. Pong is very interesting. But you know what I mean. Just jump on the forum and be active. Get. If you don't actually raise your voice, I won't hear it. And if you don't tell us what you want, well, then you're the only person who knows what you want. Enough of that. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you some other time. So thanks for that. Bye.